Throughout his career, Kendrick Lamar has oscillated between hyper-visibility and deliberate retreat. Early projects like Section 80 and To Pimp a Butterfly positioned him as a vocal figure in hip-hop, engaging in public discourse on race, politics, and personal struggle. His presence in interviews, features, and social commentary was prominent, creating the impression of an artist willing to use his platform as a means of direct engagement. Yet, after Damn, Kendrick shifted into near-total withdrawal. His appearances became rare, his social media lay dormant, and even as Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers arrived, he largely bypassed traditional promotional cycles. This silence raises critical questions. Is his retreat a rejection of fame, a refusal to be commodified, or a deeper philosophical stance on the ethics of presence and absence in art? By refusing to maintain a continuous public persona, Kendrick has subverted the expectations placed on artists in the digital age. Unlike his contemporaries, who remain accessible via social media and frequent releases, Kendrick's invisibility challenges the notion that constant visibility is necessary for cultural relevance. This decision aligns him with a broader intellectual tradition, one in which silence is not a passive act, but a deliberate exercise of power. Kendrick himself has hinted at this philosophy. On whacked-out murals from GNX, he raps, "Yeah, keep your head down and work like I do." This encapsulates his ethos, prioritizing craft over external validation. Rather than indulging in the modern impulse to constantly document one's process, Kendrick champions discipline, letting the art speak for itself. Kendrick Lamar's strategic retreat aligns with a long tradition in which silence and absence amplify artistic impact. Across disciplines, masters of their craft have wielded silence as a tool for provocation, boundary pushing, and expectation defying. In music, composer John Cage's 433 stands as a seminal example. Premiered in 1952, the piece instructs performers to remain silent for 4 minutes and 33 seconds, forcing the audience to reconsider the nature of music itself. Cage's work underscores the transformative power of silence in artistic expression. Literature, too, embraces this principle. Samuel Beckett's Three Dialogues explores the limitations of expression, asserting that true art arises from acknowledging both the obligation to communicate and the impossibility of full articulation. This paradox mirrors Kendrick's retreat. His silence compels deeper engagement with his existing body of work. Visual artists have also harnessed silence. Caspar David Friedrich's paintings, depicting solitary figures facing vast landscapes, evoke a meditative stillness that invites introspection. Similarly, Kendrick's absence isn't a void, it's an invitation for audiences to reflect more deeply on his artistry and evolution. Kendrick's hiatus, then, is not merely a break, it is an intentional silence that enhances his mystique, ensuring his return carries weight. Philosopher Jacques Derrida's concept of deconstruction suggests that meaning is shaped as much by what is left unsaid as by what is spoken. By this logic, Kendrick's silence is not an absence, it is presence in another form. Unlike artists who engage continuously with media, Kendrick employs strategic invisibility, making each reappearance an event. The less he speaks, the more weight his words carry. This echoes Roland Barthes' idea of the rupture of expectation, a disruption that forces audiences to question their assumptions about an artist's role. His silence is not avoidance, but an invitation to listen more carefully, to engage without distraction. On feel. From Damn, Kendrick articulates this philosophy. I feel like friends been overrated, I feel like the family been faking, I feel like the feelings are changing. This contemplation on authenticity reinforces his belief that stepping back reveals who and what truly matters. Michel Foucault's theory of the panopticon, a structure of constant surveillance, offers a useful lens through which to analyze Kendrick's retreat. In today's world, social media functions as a digital panopticon, where artists are expected to perform continually under public scrutiny. Every post, tweet, and interview becomes part of a self-surveilled cycle in which identity is not owned, but dictated by external forces. Kendrick Lamar's silence is a method of resistance. By stepping outside the cycle of self-exposure, he rejects the mechanisms that commodify an artist's presence. Rather than allowing himself to be endlessly consumed by the public, he places boundaries between himself and the industry, an act that reflects both personal autonomy and a larger critique of fame's intrusive nature. Moreover, Kendrick's silence underscores a core tenet of existential thought. Freedom lies not in the ability to be seen, but in the ability to disappear. His refusal to engage in the perpetual content cycle reclaims agency from an industry that thrives on overexposure. Maurice Blanchot, in his exploration of artistic disappearance, suggests that the ultimate artist must withdraw, allowing the work itself to stand as an independent living document. In texts like The Space of Literature, he argues that true art transcends the author's presence, existing in a realm beyond personal intent. By stepping back from public discourse, Kendrick enacts this philosophy. His absence forces listeners to focus solely on the art rather than the artist, reinforcing the idea that meaning emerges through engagement with the work itself, rather than the figure who created it. Having established Kendrick Lamar's strategic withdrawal as an act of artistic defiance, the next question emerges. What happens to an artist's work when they refuse to explain it? Traditionally, meaning in art is dictated by either authorial intent, what the artist says, or critical interpretation, what scholars, media, and fans construct. But Kendrick's silence disrupts this balance, forcing the listener into an active role. His absence decentralizes control, turning his music into an evolving text, reshaped by time, culture, and personal reflection. Thus, his silence is not just artistic resistance, it is a hermeneutical challenge. Who decides what a song truly means? The creator, or the world that engages with it? Philosopher Paul Ricoeur argues that once a work is released into the world, it achieves autonomy, severing itself from its creator's intent, interpretation theory. The audience brings their own interpretations, shaped by personal experience, historical context, and cultural shifts. Kendrick Lamar embodies this philosophy by resisting the urge to explain his music, allowing meaning to evolve beyond his original vision. Consider All Right. Upon release, it was a personal anthem of perseverance. Months later, it became a political battle cry during the Black Lives Matter protests. In the future, its meaning will shift again, shaped by the moment in which it is heard. This constant reinvention aligns with Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of eternal return, which suggests that meaning is never fixed. It continuously reshapes itself based on new contexts. Thus spoke Zarathustra. Kendrick's silence ensures that his music does not remain tethered to one historical moment but is perpetually reinterpreted. By refusing to dictate a single correct interpretation, Kendrick makes his music a living text, a body of work that grows, shifts, and remains relevant across generations. His silence is not just a rejection of fame, it is a mechanism that guarantees his art's timelessness. Critic Susan Sontag, in Against Interpretation, warned against overanalyzing art to the point of sterilizing its impact. She argued that great works are meant to be felt, not just explained. Kendrick applies this philosophy through his non-linear storytelling. Good Kid, Mad City unfolds like a fragmented film. Ambiguous narratives. To Pimp a Butterfly embraces surrealism. Layered meanings. Damn can be played in reverse, altering its message. Kendrick's silence ensures that his work remains experiential rather than didactic, compelling listeners to engage with it actively rather than passively. The intellectual tradition of silence is not merely theoretical, it has profound, real-world applications. Psychological research underscores the power of mystique and selective engagement in shaping influence. Robert Cialdini's scarcity principle states that perceived value increases when something is less available. By limiting his public presence, Kendrick heightens anticipation and amplifies impact. Likewise, sociologist Irving Goffman's impression management theory explains how individuals curate their presence to maximize effect. Moreover, studies in psychology reveal that intermittent presence strengthens influence. Figures who employ strategic absence maintain higher perceived credibility and authority over time. How can individuals harness this principle? Master restraint. In an era of oversharing, patience is power. Let your work speak without constant justification, allowing its meaning to evolve in the minds of those who engage with it. Rarity breeds reverence. While flooding the world with content creates momentary visibility, selective, intentional output fosters legacy. The most enduring figures in history, artists, thinkers, revolutionaries, understood the potency of measured appearances. Silence sharpens influence. Withdrawing from noise sharpens clarity, strengthens vision, and preserves artistic integrity. Final thought. Silence has elevated legends before, and it will again. If impact is measured not by presence but by anticipation, then Kendrick Lamar has already rewritten the rules. He doesn't just disappear, he leaves us waiting, listening, questioning. And perhaps that is the point. Kendrick Lamar is not a figure to be defined. He is a question to be engaged. His music does not offer certainty, only the relentless interrogation of existence. Who are we? What shapes us? How do we reconcile the weight of history with the struggle for selfhood? Through phenomenology, he captures the immediacy of experience, the fear, the trauma, the fleeting moments of grace. Through existentialism, he wrestles with free will and fate, presenting himself not as a savior, but as a man navigating the contradictions of identity. Through the absurd, he exposes the chaos of systemic oppression and personal suffering. And through transcendence, he reaches for something beyond: spiritual reckoning, artistic evolution, the constant unraveling and reconstruction of self. But is Kendrick Lamar a philosopher, a prophet, a paradox? The answer lies in the space between these identities. He is all of them, and yet none of them, constantly shifting, resisting definition, deconstructing himself with every album, every verse, every silence. If there is a final truth to his work, it is this: Kendrick Lamar does not provide answers. He forces us to sit with the questions, and perhaps in that act of questioning, we find the philosophy of self and society, not in resolution, but in the refusal to be complacent.